Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sector, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I just want to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we really couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we've got Sarah Mansfield. She's the joint MD and co-owner of the Food Dock, the new 3.5 million food and hospitality hothouse on the Gloucester docks. It's been open to the public for, would you believe it, a year. Where has that gone? It's now had 10 of its proposed 15 businesses are open and trading. So we're going to find out what is happening next, who's coming down the tracks, how is the Christmas, what is the Christmas trade? How important is that to them as well? We have Simon Hewer. He's just become the CEO of Hewer FM, the company based in Waterwells Business Park. It's turned over 21 million with 140 staff. It's a major regional player in heating and renewable sector. It's just gone through a management buyout. So we'll find out all about that. Hopefully the do's and don'ts of doing an MBO and what it means to the company long term. So welcome to Simon as well. We've got David Morton, headmaster of King's School. The school currently has 750 pupils, 230 staff, a turnover of £12 million. Now the summer holidays are over, term time is over, we're all back in work. So we'll find out what's going on in the school, but also about the government's plans for the VAT and what that does mean for the independent school, especially like King's, but the overall education system here in Gloucestershire as well. And finally, last not least, we've got Rowan Elliott. He's the managing director of Allstones and Speedy Skips. Company has a turnover of 16 million, 100 staff. And in terms of what comes in through Speedy Skips, I don't know if you know this, but they recycle 98% of what comes in. It is absolutely amazing. You get a chance to see it, please go along if they let you. And we'll also find about the overall market sector in aggregates and also what's it been like from taking over from Simon Ford, who now becomes the CEO. So welcome to you as well, Rowan. Okay, before we start, let's have a look at the national newspapers. What's making the headlines? Okay, the Daily Telegraph. Lammy, UK missiles are vital to stop Putin. So the Daily Telegraph. The Times. Junk food adverts banned before 9 p.m. to take the weight off the NHS. The Guardian. Starmer tells Putin, you started this war, you can end it any time. The Eye. Junk food TV ad banned before 9 p.m. with total ban online in 2025. The Daily Mail. Nanny Starmer's ban on junk food ads to save the NHS. But the story on the Daily Mail that really caught my eye is this one. I'm quitting Britain to escape Labour's war on wealth, says the head of a plumbing firm. Funny enough, Simon might have a view on that. The Daily Express. Esther's hoped as key vote backs law to change on assisted dying. The Metro. Guitar hero Bon Jovi takes down bridge jumper. And the Daily Star. Keeps calm and stroke a chair. Apparently, we should be all feeling more wood. Okay, let's start the show. Okay, let's start with you, Sarah. What have you picked out from the papers, please?
So I've picked out a couple of things today. The first being the comment the one you picked up about junk food TV and ban before 9 p.m. So this is all about reducing the exposure to fizzy drinks, chocolates, crisps, and so on to children in particular. And this is an attempt by Labour to start improving the health of the nation by what we eat. They're saying these regulations are going to come in from the 1st of October. It will include restrictions on advertising online. It will include restrictions on advertising before 9 p.m. on television. Though I'm not sure many children watch television these days, but you never know. And generally also looking to tighten up rules in fast food outlets and takeaways. And I think that's relevant for all of us in the food industry, and I think a good thing to do. It's important and on all of us and to concentrate on the food that's being offered out there. It can be very addictive. And is very addictive for some people. So those that are responsible for producing food and selling food and serving food need to be very cognizant of that. And so we would be very supportive of that as the food doc, and I think that that's a very important thing for the food industry to take account of. So that's on the eye, as you said, and on the front page of the Times. And the other one that I picked up that I thought was quite nice and interesting to think about when, as a city of Gloucester, that we also have to think about how we present ourselves was, and it's in the Guardian here, the Bradford City of Culture. And they're announcing their City of Culture programme for 2025 now. It's interesting. I mean, it provides an opportunity for a city to draw on all sorts of cultural threads that put it together. So Bradford are saying that they'll host the Turner Prize. They'll have baseline music in there. They're looking to have the magician Dynamo to present. So there's a whole range of activism and culture that come together. And when you look at these cities such as Bradford and Gloucester that have so much history, so much in our backdrop, so much culture to draw on, it's lovely to have these sort of programs that wash through a city that bring people together and allow everyone to share and celebrate things that they don't normally do.
Thank you ever so much for that, Sarah. That's great. That is a natural fit for me to introduce David. Obviously, sitting there in one of the most historical buildings in not just in the city, but also in the country near the cathedral. Thanks, David, for joining us. First of all, I'm sure you've got an opinion on junk food and kids and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. My first opinion there is on the food doc. I mean, I'm a local resident. It has been absolutely fantastic, and you should be so proud, Sarah, of the effect it's had on that little part of the city. It's such a treat to go down there. In terms of junk food, obviously it's a really complex area, isn't it? Just banning the adverts alone isn't going to make a huge difference, but I think every step you take is going to be a good one. I would add that it needs to be a much wider solution there. So there are plenty of people who can't afford to buy more expensive food, which is better prepared. And so dealing with poverty and inequality across the country is a large part of that. And obviously education as well. As a teacher, you'd expect me to say that. And we work really hard here. We have a good food week every week at King's, and the children learn about where food comes from, what's the environmental impact of it, why are some foods better for them than others. And this year we've started getting them to actually scrape their own plates at lunchtime, so they think about food waste, and it really helps them to connect with the fact that this is going into the bin if they don't eat it. So yeah, there's a huge amount to do, but I'm obviously supportive of the move against junk food.
Okay, what stories have you taken for the papers, please?
So I looked online and found the Guardian had done an article in the education section, and I'm just holding it up so that we can see that the first thing is a photo of 3 young men at Eton. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But the headline is leading universities are urged to take no more than 10% of students from private schools. So this is a couple of professors who've done some research, and they're suggesting that in order to kind of level the playing field, there should be quotas put on children and which schools they come from, so that they can't make progress by going on to universities like Oxford and Cambridge. So I'd say this is pretty divisive, literally. I would say that, first of all, in terms of the picture, there are, I think, around 800 children at Eton. There are around 550,000 children in independent schools across the country. And obviously, Eton is the absolute pinnacle in terms of affluence and selectivity. It doesn't represent the sector at all. So it's such a shame that the media generally tend to start with photos like this when they're talking about the independent sector, because it doesn't paint a fair picture. And I think if I worked in a university, I'd also say that I take exception with the term leading universities as well, because there are many fantastic universities, dozens and dozens of them around the country, offering a whole host of different opportunities, and things like degree apprenticeships now, which are massively popular and arguably are better value for money, or a better way for your child to spend 3 or 4 years than going to a traditional university and coming out with £55,000 of debt. So I think I take the point of the article. I understand, obviously, about wanting social mobility, but I think kind of creating this kind of divisive culture and putting people into blocks isn't helpful longer term.
Okay, I've got to ask you just very quickly while I've got you on the show as well. This idea where they're bussing in kids from Bristol, from Wales and everything else into the grammar schools here, I just don't get it. We've got Crypt, we've got Ribston, and they're bringing kids from outside the area. Surely that's not right.
Yeah, well, I would say if you were a local resident and you were trying to get your child into one of those good schools and they've been working hard in their local primary school, it is such a shame if their place is taken by a child from Cardiff, from Birmingham, from Oxford. It's crazy.
let alone the journey these kids will have to make as well to the actual school. Every school should be lifted up. Sorry, I just wanted your opinion on that. Thanks ever so much. Simon, welcome to Punchline Talks. Great to have you back on the show. It was a long time. I think it's taken me 2 years to get you back on, mate. Okay, what have you picked out from the papers?
I picked up an article on the Times Online, actually, which is a piece about the Palace of Westminster, which is due to go through a refit. And they're suggesting there's going to be tying up the tradespeople on that project for more than 40 years. And it just made me think about the state of the industry, across the industry, in the construction industry. There's a lack of training going on, a lack of investment really for two or three decades, really. And thinking about the opportunity and the challenge to government to try and level the playing field. So basically, if you're a firm that trains people, there's a cost of training, and then what you hope these trainees stay with you, and you sort of reap the benefit as they become a qualified engineer or fitter. But of course, other companies who don't train don't have that cost and can afford to pay maybe an extra £1 an hour. So when young Johnny qualifies freshly, sometimes their heads can be turned to go to the highest bidder. So just trying to find a way of trying to level the playing field so that it's not a cost to train people; it's actually an investment. So it's something that I've been sort of banging on about for a little while. And this piece in the Times just made me think, 40 years, a project of that size, a bit like HS2 and Sizewell, a huge projects going on, sucking up a huge amount of labour, and it's just getting harder and harder to find good people.
Not the only other thing. Would you want a contract that lasts for 40 years, Simon? If someone came along and said, Simon, Hewers, you can work on Buckingham Palace for 40 years, mate. I suppose there's your pension, isn't it?
Well, I mean, to be fair, we have clients within social housing and private work where we've worked with them for over 40 years, not on a single contract, but we have frameworks which run 10 or 15 years, Ministry of Defence, local government, NHS. It's a lot of what we do. And they're great because you can really get to invest in that contract or in that partnership. And it does in the end provide a better service and much better value for money if you've got a decent run of contract.
Just going to quickly ask you the last thing on this before we go over to Rowan. What about debentures? Because that's what used to happen, isn't it? You would hire someone, you would train somebody, and they had to stay with you. They couldn't just then bugger off. No,
well, this is. I think that would be a step too far back the other way. I think there's a space in the middle where the pain, and I'll say the pain. I mean, we do train a lot of people. We've probably got within administration apprenticeships as well as trade apprenticeships, we've probably got 20 people, young people, going through training any one moment in time, which we're incredibly proud of. And then we hope that our values as a business mean something to them and they stay. We might not be paying the top rate, but they like the way we work and the sort of people we are. So training is a great thing to do. I think the playing field just needs to be a little bit leveled out.
Okay, thanks ever so much for the time. I think we all sitting here nodding away with you, really. Okay, Rowan, great to have you on the show, mate. What have you picked out from the papers, please?
I've picked a couple of pieces out. Just want to echo Simon's points around training and skills and developing people. And it was something I was going to touch on later when we get into actual business and how the business is performing. But there's a massive skills gap still out there, and trying to attract people into industry, getting people in, training, developing and maintaining that sort of workflow is something that's really important to me and to the Allstone business. And again, and I'll get into the bits that I've picked out in the press. Simon mentioned HS2, and I know you've mentioned that before on this show. And for me, that's all around a compelling argument or a compelling case. And I don't think there was ever a compelling case for that particular project. And then linking that into a piece that I've picked out. And this is a piece by Patience Wheatcroft, and it's in the New European, actually. And I picked it out because it talks about compelling cases, and it talks about the country and short-termism, and the way in which, if you think about the country and manage the country as a P&L, you're never going to make the right decisions. And that's the position that we find ourselves in, I think, at the moment. This article advocates a completely different approach to managing national finance and infrastructure projects, which is super important to my business, Simon's, everybody's business. And this is all around public net worth accounting, which sounds super complicated and probably is. However, when you get into it, it's all around, well, actually, we've got lots and lots of public assets, which, if properly valued, we could leverage, and then we could then focus our attention on delivering long-term projects that actually over time will pay for themselves. At the moment, regardless of your political views, there still seems to be a little bit of short-termism. So if you're looking at cancelling road and infrastructure projects or hospitals, I get the point that we need to balance the books. I get the point that there's a £22 billion black hole, but actually delivering a short-term approach isn't over time going to remedy that. And that's what this article speaks to. And there is probably little difference between the approach at the moment and the approach under, say, I don't know, George Osborne and the austerity measures that we took. And it just speaks around a completely different approach, which we adopted in Sweden, to deliver infrastructure projects over time and get the country moving again. So that's the first article I picked out. The second article, which was at the Times Online, and that was, it's just an article, and it comes from Zoopla, and it speaks about the housing crisis. And I won't go into tons of detail, but the figures are absolutely startling. Well, this is all around public housing and rental. So there are 24% fewer homes out there for rent. Rents are up by 30%. So there's a complete imbalance in terms of affordability. And there are 21 potential prospective tenants for every home that's out there. And again, linking it into my business, to the Allstone business, it's something that's very, very real. We're massive supporters of social housing and trying to get social housing projects moving. But again, looking at Gloucester as a city and the sort of the proximity, the lack of social housing and affordable housing, I think it's a massive issue. And it's one that I know the nation's struggling to deal with, but it's one that's very real and needs everybody's attention. So they're the couple of bits that I picked out, Mark.
No, thanks ever so much for that. Really, really interesting. You're right. And the fact that people just can't afford a rent. It's quite as simple as that now. Okay, thanks ever so much, everybody, for reviewing the papers. We're going to go back over to you, Sarah, to talk about the food dock. Congratulations, by the way. I personally feel it's been a huge success. It's been a year now since you opened it. So how's it been? How's business, and what's coming down the tracks?
Yeah, so it's been good. So this year, during the year, we've been opening businesses throughout, as you know, and thank you very much for covering them. We've got the one more opening at the end of this month, Daikoku. They're a ramen business from, and they've already got an outlet within Stroud. So that'll be nice to add another type of food that we've been after. So we've been very, very careful to open up businesses that complement each other. And as you know, we source independent businesses from the region. We're working with young businesses and work very hard to ensure we've got a neighbourhood of businesses that work together and that complement each other. So the ramen is a new one for us. We've not got any East Asian food yet, and so it'll be good to see them open up and join the others. And in answer to your question, trading has been very good. Thank you very much. You know, we've been delighted with how trading has gone, and we sit down with each of the businesses every 3 months and talk to them about their trading and how they're doing and things that can be developed and improved and so on. And so everyone's on a journey here, and we hope to see it continue to improve.
Now, the business model is very different to others, isn't it? Because you get a share of the turnover or the profits of the companies. Is that right? How does it work?
Yeah, so we've tried to turn the model not completely on its head, but we've shifted the model so that we have changed the relationship between essentially the traditional landlord and tenant relationship. So we don't have any fixed costs, we don't have any service charge, we don't have any base rents. Everything's based on a turnover figure between us and the businesses. So if they trade well, we'll get the rent, and if they don't trade well, we don't get the rent. And what that means is that whereby the traditional landlord and tenant relationship tends to result with the landlord just chasing the tenant for money, demanding things that are set out within the lease. We have a very simple lease structure. And actually our model encourages the landlord and the business. We don't call them tenants, actually call them members of the food dock, and that's in the legal documents as well. But it encourages our relationship to be one more of a partnership, and one whereby we're encouraging their business growth, and we want their business growth because obviously that benefits us as well. And so you tend to get much more what we think of a win-win situation rather than two businesses that can be at loggerheads with each other.
Okay, no, fantastic, and I absolutely love it down there. By the way, I absolutely do. It exceeded my expectations, to be fair. And of course, I was along that journey with you. I felt the pain, the amount of times I did those little videos, which are very popular as well. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Sarah. Really appreciate that overview as well. I'm going to go over to you, Simon, because I know that you're going to have to leave a bit earlier as well. So let's go to you next. Simon, tell us about Hewer. Congratulations, you've had this management buyout. Was it a painful process?
Well, no, it wasn't. I think that's purely down to the team of people within the business, i.e. the management team, most of which I've worked with for 15, 20, 25 years. So we all knew each other very well. It's something that we've been planning for sort of, well, for me, probably 5 years, with the team for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think it's because we share the sort of values of the business, and we share the goal of actually maintaining the family values as the business moves on into its next page of the book. So I'm really excited. We've got a number of people within the business who've got their children or family members in the business, not just me and my family. It's other members of the business with their family members in, which is brilliant. And I think it's set well now to go forwards for the next, hopefully the next 25 years would be fantastic. So yeah, it's been good.
Now, the business itself, obviously, going to the business part, the busiest part of the year, isn't it? It's getting cold. We're turning up the heaters. The boilers are breaking down. It's the first day of frost. You must be thinking, woo!
Yeah. Well, it's, as I alluded to earlier on, and, Rowan mentioned, if we could pick up another 20 engineers tomorrow, we would be buying 20 more vans. It's a busy time of year, but also because we're in the renewable space as well, air source heat pumps, with cooling. So we're busy summer and winter. But as you say, that first cold snap, the phone lines, heat up very quickly. It's a very busy time. And as you know, with the business, we don't just do the commercial work, schools and colleges and hospitals. We also do domestic. If you've got a boiler at home, we look after it. We do a little maintenance plan, which is, can I just say, it's better and cheaper than some of the national alternatives. It's a busy time of year, and it's been a busy year for the business. And we've grown quite steadily with some new contracts. It's been a very good year.
And you're also a very good pickleball player. I just want to add that as well. I thought I'd throw that in there because I wasn't expecting that. Thank you ever so much for that. Thank you ever so much for that, Simon. Let's go over to you, David. David, back from school or back from the summer holidays. It's all systems go now in the school playground and the classroom. What's it been like? Opening up the doors again.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, it's been good. The children are all coming in school just outside my window here, and it's always lovely when term starts again to see the life kind of flooding back into the school, and seeing all that optimism and the new starts for so many children. So yeah, we really love this time of year. We did have a really busy summer, actually, as well as the public exam results, which were fantastic. We also did a lot of work with the local community. So we had a group from The Venture, who are based in White City. They brought 700 people came over and had a big party to celebrate their end of summer kind of charitable work. So that was lovely. We had the Bloodhound education team in. They were doing engineering work with young people from around the county as well, and we've had our children supporting that as kind of pupils from King's supporting local children too. So it's been a really busy summer, but it's been good, and we're in a good place now.
Now, obviously, the Labour government has proposed this new VAT. You and I talked about it quite extensively before the election. I was just looking at my notes previously, and so what's your thoughts on it now? It's coming into January, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously expected it to come in, and we felt it was pretty likely Labour would come to power. What I don't think anybody, literally anyone I've spoken to, expected was that they would go with January as the introduction date. There is, not a school in the country, an independent school in the country, that's currently VAT registered in the way that they need to be. There's a huge amount of sorting out to do in terms of what you bill to the parents, because some of your costs are tuition costs, some of it is food, some of it's transport. There's all of that to sort out. As well, and obviously schools are here, children are in their schools, so having to move your child mid-year if you can't afford the fees from January is not positive for the young people around the country. And as I said earlier, that's over 500,000 children who could potentially be affected. So yeah, I think it's come in too soon. As I said to you before, I think the aim of improving investment in state education is absolutely the right thing to do. I'm fully behind the government with that, but I think they're rushing this through because they want to try and get some money coming in to help them with their plans. And it's a shame that some of the children are going to suffer as a result of that.
Does it make you feel angry, David? A little bit, obviously frustrated as well. It feels very unfair, a bit like the pensioners, really.
Yeah, I'm not someone who sort of feels that I need to talk about it being unfair. We are in the situation we're in, and I think we all have to just get on with that, don't we? You have plenty of businesses who go through difficult times. This is definitely that time for our sector. We have known that it was coming, so that all schools should have done their preparation. I think the speed of it, though, and the fact that it's straight in at 20%, that is a massive impact. And I'm sure the other three people on the call here, if their business had a 20% impact starting in January that they could do nothing about, they'd all be feeling pretty sore about it as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. What are you going to do about it, David? I know you tried to look at the cost, isn't it? But let's be honest about it. A lot of the parents that go to the schools and the independent schools aren't these wealthy millionaires, billionaires, and drive around in Lamborghinis. They're people like myself, make personal sacrifices. Our daughter went to your school, had a fantastic education. She's a teacher now, thankfully, for the work that you did with her. But then we made a lot of sacrifices. We didn't have summer holidays for like 7 years. It was like that. And there are lots of other parents. And I feel those parents will not be able to afford it, and they will drift into the school. Have you got a kind of feel on the numbers that you might lose and the impact that will have on the school?
So I think there's King's specifically, and then there's the kind of the wider sector. So the figures that are being thrown around are somewhere between 20 and 30% of children leaving the independent sector over the next 5 years. So I think obviously if your child is currently in their A-level year, currently doing their GCSEs, currently doing a BTEC in an independent, very unlikely to take them out unless you absolutely have to. But what we will definitely see is that in the kind of the input points, 11 plus, 13 plus, 16 plus, there will be fewer children coming in, and at the exit points, there will be more who don't carry on to the next stage. So it will be a leveling off and then a steady decline of numbers in independent schools over the next 5 to 10 years. In terms of King's, we're really fortunate because our school has been growing and we have been working really, really hard here. And in terms of VAT, we made a plan. We wrote to our parents in January this year, and we said that the fees would only go up by 9%. And we've made a lot of savings. We've restructured areas of school, again, as you would in a business, to make sure that you were ready for the kind of the storm that was ahead. So our parents are, to some extent, I think, satisfied that the school has done everything it can. Some independent schools locally are passing on the full 20%, and each school has to make that decision. And then obviously the parents have to make their decision in turn as to whether they can afford that or whether they're going to take their children out. And of course, the other side of this all is the state sector, where classes are already very large, where there is a teacher recruitment crisis, and where the schools are underfunded. And all these children who are already moving into the state sector, you know, there aren't teachers. You can't magically find a teacher over the summer holidays, just as Simon can't find an apprentice to drive his van. So this is going to take years to train teachers up to a good quality to improve the state schools. And I think there's going to be a really interesting few years ahead where everyone's going to be suffering a little bit in the state sector and the independent sector.
Well, our youngest daughter works in a primary school, and there's 32 kids in one classroom, and it's tough going, I can tell you, for the teachers, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. David, thank you ever so much, and thank you also for giving my daughter a wonderful education as well. Just going to add that. Okay, let's go over to you, Rowan. Rowan, tell us a bit about Allstones at the moment. How is business in the aggregates and the speedy skip sort of side of the world?
Business itself it's absolutely buzzing, and we're doing some great things. Look, the backdrop, you can always describe the backdrop as difficult. Of course you can. But in terms of our business, we're performing really well. We're growing. We're on a growth trajectory. If people don't know about the business, so we're actually a recycling business. So we recycle waste. So we've got a skip side of the business where we're taking waste from retail and from commercial customers, and we take that material in, and we recycle 98% of the material that comes in. And again, I don't think people out there actually understand what happens to the waste and the waste cycle. We're a business that's trying to do good. We're a sustainable business, and that part of the business continues to perform really strongly. In addition to that, we've got an aggregates business. So we produce recycled aggregates. So again, if you're looking at that sort of green platform and the sustainability platform, we're doing good things. So we're replacing primary aggregates. So we're replacing materials that traditionally would have come from quarries, large holes in the ground. So we're reusing materials that might come from utility work or demolition projects, and turning that material into super useful aggregates to go back into construction projects. And that part of the business, we invested quite heavily last year in new plants and equipment. There was a multi-million-pound investment to deliver a new plant to produce recycled aggregates. And that business, like I said, it continues to perform strongly. Or both businesses, really, it's about messaging. It's about messaging our retail customers or the general public in terms of what happens to your waste, what can we do to help, and how can we deliver a more sustainable solution. And then the broader piece, the more commercial piece around how can we help you to reduce your carbon footprint, lower your costs, and reuse materials that traditionally might not have been used at all. So as I said, business is buzzing. We've got a super positive outlook, and yeah, it's going well.
I mean, the thing about it, I always look at it as a building site. You get all the rubble and, you know, all that stuff and bricks and everything, and it goes into your place, and they collect it and they put it into these giant hoppers. And what is amazing, guys, is they completely sort of fan it out, isn't it? You take everything out and break it all down into the different types of stones and rock and big piles of sand. It's awesome.
It is, and you know, the technology to produce those materials has developed over time. We're fortunate that our plant and equipment, I mean, it is state of the art. It is brand new, and it's delivering a quality product. But all of our products can go back into traditional construction applications, whether that's concrete or whether that's sub-bases for roads. So we can actually replace pretty much all of the primary aggregate that's produced using traditional methods. So yeah.
Okay, well, thanks ever so much for that, Rowan. Great insight into the business as well, and congratulations. I know you've been in position 18 months now, isn't it, after stepping into Simon Fordy's rather large shoes? Hopefully that hasn't been too difficult.
I've been super fortunate. It's a family business. It's been trading for 40 years. So since the early 80s, if I've got my maths right. So yeah, and like I say, it's a family business. I work closely with Simon. Simon's now the CEO, so Simon can look at the business more strategically while I manage the day-to-day, and we work closely together around growth projects and opportunities. What can we do with this business? Where can we take it? What's the art of the possible? So we've got a great team of people. As you said in your introduction, just under 100 people. And I'm just been amazed at the passion for the business that the people show. People are genuinely bought into this business, this organisation. And yeah, I'm super proud to be here. And yeah, super proud to see the positive things that we're doing.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Rowan. And it was great to meet you as well. We met in the summer as well. You're part of big feature in the magazine as well. Okay, we are over time, actually, but let's quickly, if you don't mind, go through pick of the punchlines. I'm going to start with you, Simon, so that you can do your punchlines if you like, and then you can leave if you want to get away.
Thank you very much.
So what have you picked out?
I picked up Stroud Brewery. Have gone into partnership with a national pub chain. I really like first of all, I really like the beer that they make at Stroud Brewery. It's really nice. Really nice bunch of people. Fantastic, really nice setup down there. They're the first in the UK to be both organic and B grade brewery. I think really it's just one of these great little businesses in Gloucestershire. There are so many great businesses in Gloucestershire, and over the last couple of 3 years, I suppose I've become more and more aware of the number of businesses that are doing so well in our county. Like I say, with Stroud Brewery, they've now teamed up with this national pub chain, and I just think they're going to go from strength to strength. So I was really chuffed for them, really pleased for them.
Great business, great guys. Thank you ever so much for that, Simon. Rowan, what's you picked out for the pick of the punchlines, please?
I picked up the article around the cyber attack. So the cyber attack against Tewkesbury Borough. And I picked that out for a couple of reasons, because obviously it's not unique, and I think everybody's aware of the Gloucester City cyber attack. But these things are ever more real, and I sort of likened it to, I'm sure we've all been in a position where our PC has fallen over and we genuinely don't know what to do. And a lot of the time it looks like black magic. Somebody comes along and does some stuff and you go, I don't understand this. I genuinely don't understand this. But from a cyber attack perspective, I looked at the article and taken it away, and then looking at it more broadly, there are some really, really basic things that everybody can do. And as I said, this thing gets ever more real. So it was around the importance of cybersecurity, the basic measures that we all should take, and how, it's becoming ever more present.
Okay, no, it was a very interesting story. Obviously, they were very concerned. I actually had a phone call at 10:30 in the evening from Tewkesbury Borough Council wanting to talk to us about it. They were that worried as well. Obviously, wanted to get it out to the general public and to the media what's actually happening as well. I was asleep, by the way. I didn't take the call. Anyway, David, what have you picked out for the punchlines, please?
I was really pleased to see yesterday the story about city centre regeneration, that the City Council had signed off on, I think, 180 new homes on brownfield sites. This is absolutely fantastic news. Again, living in the centre of town, we're very close here to the empty Sainsbury's site, the empty Wilko's site. They mentioned several others there around the city, including on London Road. And I just think, derelict buildings don't do good for anybody. So if they can get a good mix of housing types in there, if we can make sure that there's therefore less antisocial behaviour, less crime, we can bring people into the city centre to support the businesses. It can only be a positive thing, and delighted to see it.
Yeah, totally. It's a win-win, isn't it, really? Okay, well, let's wrap up the pick of the punchlines with you, Sarah. What have you picked out, please?
Mine was the one early in the week of the first letting at the Forum and the office letting. I was lucky enough at the Chamber of Commerce to have a tour of the University of Gloucester site and the Forum this week, and it was inspirational. It's lovely going around these projects that are ambitious for Gloucester. Walking on the rooftops, looking at the context of these developments within the city and the opportunities that they're going to provide and create. And it reminds us that we have a great city here with some really good things happening. And that's really why I was sort of harking to the Bradford City of Culture as well, the opportunities, the things that we can do here to unlock all that we have. There's not many cities you can stand on a rooftop and look to hills and a world-class cathedral. And yes, there are issues with Wilko's and so on, and gaps between, but you've got to start the process, and Gloucester's definitely started doing that, and news of the housing and the regeneration this week also helps. So I left that tour on Wednesday really inspired and with and hopeful of the ambition that we have as a city. It's great.
Totally agree with you there. Thank you ever so much. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. I'd just like to thank my wonderful guests. Thank you ever so much for joining us. For you, for watching, everybody, and our wonderful and fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Don't forget, please, if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. But remember, in between, it's all in the punchline. Thank you all for joining us. Bye.